Hi guys, Samantha from Jessama Tutorials here, and today I'm going to teach you a cool technique using liquid clay. So we are going to be using black liquid clay today because the black liquid clay works best. And now we're going to be using the Kato liquid clay because when it cures, it gives a wonderful shiny finish to it. So if I bring over a bead, you can see how nice and shiny that is, and that means that you don't have to sand your beads. So that's why I like to use it. Now, if you want to know where you can get black Kato liquid clay, Linda's Art Spot has it, so I'll provide a link to that in the links below. And I'm just going to dab a little bit out, so you can see that is quite nice and shiny. Then I'm going to bring over a paintbrush, and we'll just be using this, not that bead, this bead over here. Now I like to use this technique on top of a smear of clay because it just tends to help keep the colour nice and consistent. And then I will just brush it on. You can use your finger as well. Now remember when you're doing this that you want to only have a thin layer. Just paint on a tiny layer of liquid clay because too much will mean that it will drip and you don't really want it to drip. And I'll show you what to do with drips later on a different bead, but for now I'm just going to show you how to do it. There we go. So you can see it takes very little clay. It's nice and shiny at the moment. That will immediately go in the oven because you don't want it to spill. Now, a different thing is, let's say you don't want this nice shiny finish. Let's say you would rather a matte finish. So here's a bead that I've been playing around with, and you can see that it has a bit more of a matte finish compared to this one. Now the way you do that is by combining liquid clay brands. So I have some Sculpey Bacon Bond over here. And this, when it cures, has a matte finish. So what I like to do is I'll take this, which is translucent, and I'll add just a tiny bit into here. And I will mix it in. Now it's going to dilute the black colour just a tiny bit. It will also make it thicker, but it does mean that this will cure to a matte finish. So I'll bring over another bead, and again this is on top of a smear of clay, and I'll just brush it on. So hopefully you can see that it's less shiny. When it is raw, it will look shinier than it's actually going to be. And now depending on how much of the Bacon Bond you put in, the more matte it's going to be. I like to do a rough half and half, but there's no exact measurement really. And now because this is such a thin layer of clay, liquid clay, I bake it generally at pretty much recommended temperature because that's generally what my beads are made out of. So that will also go into the oven. Okay, and in the meantime, I'll just wipe that up quickly, and you want to clean off your brush as well because the liquid clay will ruin your brush. And in the meantime, while we're waiting for those to bake, I'll bring over another bead, which is this one, and you can see over here that I have too much liquid clay over here, so we've got a little bit of a bulge. So the best way to get rid of that is to just gently bring over your blade and shave. Now you're going to give this another brush of liquid clay after you're finished because you're going to lose that nice shiny finish, but you can see that it has flattened it out. So we get rid of that. Take a little dab of black liquid clay and just smear on a bit, and I'll quite literally just smear it along the side. Okay, and that would also go into the oven. So while those are in the oven, I just want to show you the difference between finishes. So here's the straight Kato black liquid clay, and this is the shiniest. So you can see it's nice and shiny. This is the one that was mixed with the bacon bond, and you can see that it's a little bit more matte. And then here's the one just using a smear of clay, and it's been sanded and buffed. So it also has a somewhat matte finish. Okay, so now the reason you want to be using black liquid clay is because if you were to use white or another color, I find that it doesn't really hide the imperfections that you're trying to hide. So the point of this is that it's basically just a black outline on the outside of your beads that hide all the patterns and ugly bits that are around the sides. So I find that black is generally the only one that does that. The metallics also work pretty well, but the black is the best because you need to make sure that you hide these imperfections. And that's another reason why I like to put a smear of clay around the edge, because that helps make sure that I've covered up all of those colors and things first. Then I put some liquid clay on the edge, and that means that my black color is more solid. So I'll bring over those beads that have come out the oven now. Okay, so they're out of the oven, and so I'll bring them over. So you can see this one's not perfect, so it is better to just get it right the first time round, but it does look better now because it doesn't have that horrible bulge. Okay, and here are these ones. So I hope you can see the difference in the finish. This one's the matte one, this one's the shiny one. So this one I can see is a lot more shiny, and this one has a little bit of a matte tint to it. So those are those ones. Now I did forget to mention something before when I was putting the liquid clay on. So I'll just take a little bit of black liquid clay, and I'll bring over my brush, and I just want to demonstrate quickly using this bead. So when you're brushing, you're quite often going to get a little bit of a rim. You might even get, let's say, a mark of liquid clay over here. You don't want to leave that on while it's baking. You always want to take your finger and get rid of it, because liquid clay is very hard to sand. It comes off very easily, so you can see that there we are, it's come off. But whenever you are doing it on the edges, check both sides to make sure that you haven't left any liquid clay on the front or back of your piece. Because if you bake it with that on, it's going to be very, very, very hard for you to get off. So just double check that before you put that in the oven. And now typically I put them in the oven for about half an hour to bake the liquid clay at whatever brand I'm using's temperature, because it's such a thin layer that it should bake. So this is on good and proper. You can see that can't scratch it off, and it's now given me a nice pure black border. And so it's quite a useful technique. It can be used with most beads, and so I do hope that you found this helpful. And if you did, please do let me know, as that is always helpful to me. And please do check the links below, as there will be a link to where you can buy the Kato Black liquid clay, which can be a little hard to find nowadays. And I'll also have a link to a video where I show you how to do the smear of clay around the edges. And so I do hope that was helpful to you, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye for now.